I will never, ever, forget that, like that's stuck with me. Like, my dad's always been my hero. And so for him to be that protective person for his mom just it just fills my heart. It fills my heart.
Some men rise, some men fall. Some help others to reach the top, while others stand watch. Who are we? We are the risk takers. We are the fighters. The regular everyday men, the downtrodden, and the uprisen. And this is The Daddy Show. Hey everyone, welcome back to The Daddy Show. I'm your host, Aaron, and I am super excited about today. Today is the day that I have alluded to in the last podcast, and the day is finally here, so I'm excited to bring this to you. Today's guest is an incredible woman. She's seen abuse, she's been the victim of abuse, she's experienced heartache and tragedy, she's authored a book called Living with Loss, A Mother's Love, and co-authored a book called Relationship Survival Kit. Please welcome LaShan Gunnels.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you. Appreciate the introduction. Thank you.
Wonderful. So yeah, I just wanted to quickly get into it here and just kind of go over, what you've experienced as far as, the abuse that you've seen, any abuse that you've experienced, and kind of go over all of that stuff, and then we can get into some of the other things that you're involved in. So
it's really strange because I grew up just thinking, life was just super simple and, not really remembering a whole lot of things that happened. Yeah, horrible arguments happened in my house, especially around money. I realized as an adult, that's where my fear, quote unquote, of money comes from. But there was one particular incident that occurred when I was a child with my grandparents. Well, as I became grown, it was explained to me from my grandmother that my grandpa, who was my hero, mind you, was abusive. He was alcoholic and he had some major issues. And when she explained it to me, I think I was in my early mid-20s. A memory came back to me about, oh my gosh, my dad, who was her protector, tried his darndest to protect her in all ways. And I guess as he got older, that just became his job. Well, I remember being a child and I was spending the weekend either with my dad or my grandma. It kind of gets blurred because they were always together. Everybody was always together and on that side of the family. But I remember, violence striking out. Like I was upstairs. They kept me away from things, so I didn't see a lot. But my dad had to end up being taken to the hospital. Well, it came out that, again, he was protecting his mom. And his dad stabbed him. My dad is here. He's alive. He's well, as well as can be. He's had a lot of trauma in his life, right?
Yeah.
But the whole thing of it is, it's like, wow, this is really something that occurs, right? Like you don't think of your grandparents. At least I didn't think of my grandparents, living that lifestyle. My grandmother, being beat, my grandpa being the alcoholic and being the abuser. Well, I say all that to say we have to be careful in those spaces because things repeat themselves. And I never understood, and I'm married now to an amazing man, thank God. But I had a relationship where I had 2 children out of that relationship prior to my husband. And it is abuse. At the end of the day, when a man or a woman puts their hands on someone, it's abuse, period. But I'm a fighter. I fight back. Well, I didn't realize that the abuse that was going on in my world with my ex, I didn't realize it was really abuse, number one. And then number two, I didn't realize where that came from until after having the conversation with my grandmother. Because if you think about it, even though I may not have been in the physical space when these things happened in that particular situation with my grandma and grandpa, I was still in the space. And you pick up on those things and you carry them with you. And then you end up, majority of the times, the cycle repeats itself. So I too, was in those type of situations. Now, I wasn't the one that ever went to the hospital or anything like that. He did. He put his hands on the wrong woman, and I'm able to laugh at it because you know why? He actually laughs at it. I have actually come to a place in my life where I have forgiven. No, we never forget, but I've forgiven, and I'm able to move on and have a somewhat relationship with this man that's the father of my children, which keeps things in a healthy perspective. But yeah, I mean, we have to, I mean, those, as you start looking at yourself, and this is to any woman or man being abused, whether it's physically, verbally, emotionally, all that abuse is abuse. Look at yourself and look at those that are watching. If you have children, nieces, nephews, anyone watching, grandchildren, come on, you have to get it together. If you can't get it together for you, get it together for them. Because the cycle does repeat, So
and
story about domestic violence.
Yeah, that's kind of something that I actually brought up in, I recorded a quick podcast a few days ago, just to put something out there. And that was kind of something that I said, is that, if you were ever the victim of any kind of abuse, that you need to be sure to go get some sort of help, whether that's talking to a truly trusted friend who's going to keep you accountable to getting better in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
All the way to, a counselor or even a psychiatrist if needed, because the chances of there being some sort of negative impact are pretty high, if you've been abused. And if you don't take care of it, you're going to do it to somebody else. And so I think that's wonderful that you said that.
Yeah, so true. I mean, it is something that you have to take care of. You have to, and like I said, if you can't do it for you, do it for those babies that are watching you, that whether you think they see it or not, they see it.
That's one thing that I think is part of being, better men and helping other men be better is, being a good mentor and finding good mentors. And I think that's probably true for women as well, having good mentors and good role models.
Absolutely.
But in being a good man and not being abusive, obviously that makes you a good mentor to somebody, even if it's not somebody you're trying to mentor actively, by acting the way you should. And kudos to your dad for being the one who stepped in, and he truly was being a good man, stepping in and protecting his mom, and that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is. And I will never ever, forget that, like that's stuck with me. Like, my dad's always been my hero. And so for him to be that protective person for his mom just it just fills my heart.
So from your perspective, what did that make you think about your dad when you realized that he was actually protecting your mom or your grandma?
Well, so because of my dad's raising and things like that, he's made some not great choices, right? Okay, and some of those not great choices came to not being there present, for me.
Okay.
So after hearing that, and like I said, I was in like my mid-20s. I had already had 2 kids. It just totally changed my perspective of everything. That young, still being able to put things in perspective, like that makes sense. He didn't know how to be a dad.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't know how to love me the way I needed to be loved. He didn't know. So that totally makes sense now. And so it just made me just appreciate him and even love him even more. And then it also made me get over some things. So it was time to have that conversation with him. say, okay, you not showing up for this, this, and this, it did hurt and it impacted me this way, but I love you for who you are. And I was able to have that conversation with him. And to this day, we're good. Like, that's my dude.
That's awesome.
I love my father. I do. I love my daddy.
That's great. Yeah, and hopefully some other people find that helpful as well, to know that, you know, I know absent fathers is a big issue, and that's a whole nother.
That's another topic in itself.
That's a whole, yeah, that's an hours long topic.
Yes.
But because there's varying reasons for it, but that obviously shows one reason, and then maybe that gives people some hope that, okay, maybe they need to find that reason, and maybe they'll find their respected person for it, and they can find some sort of healing from it.
Exactly. And because a lot of us, we carry it ourselves, thinking, I wasn't worthy enough as a daughter, I wasn't good enough for him, all these other substances took precedence over me, blah 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 blah, always me, right? But when you dig deep and really get to understand their story, their experiences, and you realize it's not about you, it's bigger than you, actually. So yeah, that taught me, and I'm grateful, because a lot of people lose their parents and don't get that information. Yeah, I received it, so I'm super grateful. Super grateful.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So let's go, like, if you want to go back to the physical altercation that you had, with the man you put in the hospital. What brought that on, and kind of how did that go? And
I can give you the story, and when I look back at the story, I'm just like, wow, just dumb, right? So, me and his, I'll keep his name off of here. Me and my ex, we were young parents, and I left Kansas City and moved to St. Louis with him and our child. We only had one at that time, and so I had told him, I was like, look, we live with his family. His family was like, that's your man, you need to be letting him in the house. We're not waking up in the middle of the night, blah blah blah. So I was like, okay, so this is my responsibility, I guess. Okay, so I was like, okay, I'll let that be my responsibility. So I had a conversation with him. I was like, hey, we have a baby, I need my rest. Can you just be respectful and don't come in after, come in before 11. That's all I'm asking, just before 11. That's usually the last, you feed him before the baby would go down for a few hours and, get some rest. Well, he did great for a while, but then he went back to his old ways. Well, he came, I was actually up because I had just, it was one of the midnight, call of duties from the child, right? So I just got through feeding my baby, and then around 2:00 in the morning, here he is. He was also alcoholic and abused drugs, so he had his stuff too, right? He's knocking at the door, and so I was sitting at the kitchen table with his little sister at the time. We made Pepsi floats. I don't know why the little 7-year-old was up that late, but she was. So we made Pepsi floats, and she was just talking to me about everything that a 7-year-old would talk about. And he comes to the door, I let him in, and I didn't acknowledge him. And so I sat back down, talking to the little girl, and we're just having this great old conversation, and I'm laughing at her because she's being really cute, and he's talking, and I don't know what he's saying because I literally have turned him off because I'm just tired of the disrespect. Well, he takes the Pepsi float and he pours it out. And I'm like, really? Oh, we can never make another one of those again. That hurt. Like, I was sarcastic, and I probably poked the bear. I'm feeling some kind of way too. It's 2:00 in the morning, dude. And
right.
Whatever. So when he took it, it kind of splattered, and so it got on me, and stickiness stuff started settling. So I went to the bathroom, washed my hands, and as I come out of the bathroom, I meet a hand. My face meets a hand. It wasn't my hand, and I'm like, what? And so I didn't even let that faze me. I didn't even say anything. I just kept walking. And I walked to the bedroom, and he's following me, calling me every, and if you need to bleep this out, you can, every that you can think of. Dumb, fat, stupid. I mean, you name it, I was that. And I'm like, and so something, like, literally I felt, and I can still feel that to this day, just clicked. And I said, oh my God. He was like, what, B? He called me another one. I was like, you forgot one. He goes, what's that, B? I said, I'm a crazy and I grabbed his genitalia, and I could not let go.